Kids can't go to McDonald's. Sad. Just sad. Coming to paperback and e-readers, Esteem Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed all-new Esteem series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Esteem Season of the Witch Girl at Amazon.com and other online booksellers. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, because we're having us a barbecue. A Brooklyn McDonald's has instituted a policy insisting that anyone under 20 years old has to come into the restaurant with a parent or a guardian and has to have ID to verify their age.
Can you imagine someday, maybe today, welcome to McDonald's, can I see your ID? Sounds weird, right?
Yeah, it does. Well, that's the greeting you'll get at one Brooklyn location. It's only letting young people in under certain circumstances. And our Kieran Dillon joins us live from outside that McDonald's in Flatbush. And Kieran, what has led to this new policy for them?
Hi, guys. Good evening. Well, that's a bit complicated. The owner says that there are crime issues, safety issues in this area, and that is why he has installed this policy. Now, we have been here at this McDonald's in Flatbush for much of the day. Actually, the NYPD was even here for the last hour or so. They just wrapped up. But you look at this door here, this front door, there have been security guards in and outside of the McDonald's throughout the day. And there's also a clear sign on the front door that says if you are under 20 years old, you're not allowed inside without a parent. If you're looking to dine under the Golden Arches but are under 20 years old, you're out of luck at this McDonald's at Nostrand and Flatbush Avenues in Brooklyn. Security watching customers as they come in. The sign on the door reads, "No one under the age of 20 is allowed in this restaurant without a parent and proper identification."
They're doing a lot of fighting, violence, and then destroying people's property.
Locals say the policy isn't surprising because of violence and nuisances in and outside the shop.
People just come here for unnecessary reasons and choose to fight.
They're crazy in this McDonald's and they do too much. They jump people, jump delivery workers, jump the security, and they terrorize people that are in there.
The owner of the McDonald's, a Brooklyn-born military veteran, says the decision to ID customers is a way to prioritize safety, adding the business is working with police and the Business Improvement District to increase the number of guards on duty and the hours they work in an effort to keep employees and customers safe. The NYPD says in 2024, it received 111 911 calls from inside and in front of the location, up from 103 calls in 2023. There were 121 calls in 2022, 63 in 2021, and 60 in 2020. This group of teenagers went into McDonald's when we were there. They card you?
No, they just let me in.
Despite being under 20, they were not carded and had their own thoughts on why.
We do go in there and get food. Maybe they recognize us or something.
The teens add they're used to being ID'd since the Target around the corner also doesn't allow those under 18 in without an adult. As for the policy, customers are split.
They're doing this for a reason. People over 20 don't be doing this because we don't have time to fight. We got bills to pay.
I love it until they learn another policy. Keep it up.
It's unfair because it's discrimination towards everybody under 20. It's not everybody coming here to fight. Some people are just trying to enjoy a meal.
So the owner of this McDonald's says if you are under 20 years old and want to order food, you can actually do so at this walk-up window or on the mobile app and then pick it up here. This window is open 24 hours a day. Reporting from Flatbush, Kieran Dillon, Pix 11 News.
All right, thank you, Kieran.
Now, at this McDonald's on the corner of Nostrand and Flatbush Avenue, the owner has implemented a policy insisting that any children could not come into the restaurant without a parent or a guardian or ID. Now, this policy was implemented by the owner of this McDonald's, who was an Army veteran, because of numerous skirmishes at this McDonald's between teenagers who come to the restaurant and basically use this restaurant as a space to participate in fights and other assaults. And the environment at this restaurant became so hostile that this manager, as a result, has insisted that no one can come into this restaurant unless they are an adult and if they are under the age of 20 years old, they are not allowed to come into the restaurant without a parent or a guardian or having ID to verify their age. And this is all being done because at this McDonald's, it's just gotten so out of control that the owner had to hire private security in order to protect the front of the house of that restaurant, because of all of the chaos being presented by these children of the corn. Now, what's happening here at McDonald's is really sad, because I remember growing up and going to McDonald's with my father on Fridays, where he would take me sometimes after I would go to the barbershop. And I remember in those days, McDonald's being a place where it was a place for families and children. And I remember in those days when McDonald's was a place where you saw the McDonaldland characters like Ronald McDonald, Grimace, Captain Crook, the Professor, Birdie, and Grimace. And it was a bright and colorful place where kids looked forward to going there to enjoy hamburgers, Happy Meals, and in my case, when I was a kid, I always loved the Big Mac. Unfortunately, what's happened to McDonald's is it's become an environment that basically fell apart due to the crack epidemics back in the 1980s and the way we have been raising children since those days, where we don't raise children anymore who basically see McDonald's as a fun family environment to enjoy some delicious food. No, we basically have these children of the corn who have turned McDonald's into a war zone. And the reason why they've turned McDonald's into a war zone, sadly, is due to the culture we have been raising children in ever since the late 1960s, when a lot of America's women decided to support the feminist movement. And as they looked to support the feminist movement and support the ideas established by the wealthy, who believed that we did not need a nuclear family unit that was established by God, what we have seen is a complete decline of society, and a complete decline of society that we don't see a place like McDonald's as a place for families to enjoy a tasty meal. No, it's basically seen as a place where people participate in fights. And again, that's another extension of the dysfunctional society that America basically created in its quest to go out here and put profits over people. Now, I go in depth on all of this in my book, The Woman Crisis, and in that book, The Woman Crisis, I have a chapter called Children of the Corn. And the reason why you see all of these children participating in fights in a former family restaurant like McDonald's is basically because we no longer raise children to basically even have a childhood. No, we don't raise children to have a childhood where they have a father in the home and a mother in the house to basically give those children a foundation in values. No, because there is no family at the point where you have parents parenting children, what is happening is, instead of those children getting the values and the culture from their parents, what they are basically is happening to them is they're growing up like stalks, and as they're growing up like wild stalks without any sort of structure, order, or values taught to them by their parents, who are too busy in a lot of cases working at these corporate jobs, as these children are put in front, back in my day, of television, where they basically were seeing a lot of media that was programming them to be consumers. What's happened these days is that because their kids no longer watch television due to TV going digital in 2009, what's happening is these kids are growing up on the internet, and with the internet basically having no structure the way television did, many of these children of the corn growing up without parental supervision and parental guidance or any sort of structure whatsoever, what's happening to these kids is that they're growing up on the internet, imbibing a lot of antisocial misinformation on places like social media, imbibing misinformation on different websites that promote antisocial behavior, and watching videos on platforms like World Star Hip Hop and where fight videos are seen regularly, and that is basically incentivizing those children to go out here and look to get attention because there's no parent giving them attention and meeting their emotional needs, and with there being no parent to give them any sort of attention to meet their emotional needs, what they are looking for are getting their needs met by their peers, and as they look to get their needs met by their peers, they're following the models of antisocial behavior shown to them on social media in many of these fight videos on platforms like World Star Hip Hop and even on YouTube. And as they're watching all of this content, this is what's motivating these children who have watched all of these fight videos in places like fast food restaurants like McDonald's. They sit there and watch these videos on places like where fights go on in McDonald's and believe that McDonald's isn't a family restaurant, but a venue for participating in fights and having a place where they could go out here and participate in violence. That is what these children were shown for the last 15 to 16 years on social media. And as these children have grown up again with, and I'll repeat it once more, without parental supervision, without parental guidance, without parents modeling a positive way to be social, they learned antisocial behavior watching again many of these fight videos. And that's why you see all of these kids thinking McDonald's is a place for violence, because it's a place where all they've seen are videos of people participating in violence. And as they've seen people participating in this violence online, they believe that going to McDonald's is a place where they can go out here and express their aggression, because that's what their mothers did. That's what their older brothers and sisters did. That's what their family did. And the irony is that this family restaurant has become a place that's not for families, and it's a place not for families because of the way we have American culture. American corporate culture is the reason why we have this antisocial environment at this McDonald's. But the irony is that many of the people who created this corporate culture wanted, again, people working and wanted people to be on these jobs, but they don't see how the family unit basically was the foundation for civility in this society. The reason why you have a civil society is because you have a family unit in place, and it's the family teaching values. That's the reason why kids can go to a restaurant and know how to behave themselves. That was something that I basically learned from my own father and my mother when they would take us to McDonald's. We learned civility as related to going to these restaurants. We learned how to have etiquette and how to socialize. That's something you learn from your family. And again, because we don't value the family unit, what happens is the kids don't know how to participate in being civil in a place like a restaurant. Because I remember, again, being taught this stuff by my father when he would take me to McDonald's with my sister. And when we would go to McDonald's, we learned how to go up to the counter and place orders, because that's one of the things my father taught me. And he taught us, again, we would make our own orders, and even my mother would teach us this. We would taught these type of behaviors of how to be civil in the restaurant, how to sit down and have a meal. But sadly, when people are watching all of these YouTube videos like they saw, I remember about 2009 or so, the case of Rayon McIntosh. He was a restaurant worker at this McDonald's, and basically somebody got hostile and wanted to jump over the counter to attack him, and he had to defend himself. And from there, we've seen, again, from 2009 to 2010 or so, this whole series of McDonald's incidents. And again, when you have a generation of children growing up, and again, there is no family unit, and they're sitting in front of these smartphones and sitting in front of these computers watching these videos that go viral. This is their example of how the world works, and they believe it's okay to participate in this kind of violence. And this is the reason why you see all of this violence taking place at that McDonald's on Flatbush and Nostrand Avenue. The reason why you're seeing all of that violence take place at that McDonald's is basically this is what children have been raised to believe. And as time has gone on and as we've gone through this pandemic, we've seen this violence escalate over a period of time, and seeing this violence escalate because, again, these children have not been socialized by parents to know how to be civil in a restaurant or be civil in society. And what exacerbates this entire situation is that these children don't know where the boundaries are because, one, their parents didn't teach them about how to behave in a social situation, and two, we don't have any sort of consequences as related to the American legal system because here in New York State, prosecutors here in New York City have their hands tied due to the catch and release approach of crime fighting established by Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio with the bail reform law that they assigned into law back in 2019. Now, this bail reform law basically makes it where these kids can, again, continue to participate in this culture of wanton violence and participate in this culture of wanton violence because they know that they cannot be held accountable because bail reform makes it where these kids are caught and released, and basically because they are caught and released, they know that there is no consequence for their actions, and they know that they won't get punished. No, they know that there's no accountability line, and this is why we have children of the corn basically wreaking havoc, and these children of the corn wreak havoc because, sadly, this is America reaping what it sowed, greater than what it sowed, later than what it sowed, as it planted the seeds of sin that were founded in greed and a quest for power from the wealthy who basically push the feminist movement. And as they pushed the feminist movement, they did not want children to be parented because they wanted to be able to teach the values of consumerism to America's children. And as they taught the values of consumerism to America's children, what we're seeing is basically this third to fourth generation of children growing up to become men and women on the road to becoming men and women in crisis, and creating a crisis for many of the retailers, like places like that McDonald's on Nostrand and Flatbush Avenue, and a Target not too far in that downtown Brooklyn shopping district. The reason why you have all of this chaos is basically, again, corporate America reaping what it sowed, greater than what it sowed, in its quest to maximize profits. In its quest to maximize profits, they are basically reaping what they sowed because they didn't want America's parents to teach their children values, and since they didn't want America's parents to teach children's values, these kids have no moral position, and the only direction New York City's restaurants like this McDonald's and the Target that was mentioned in this report are going is into a state of decline, because if you don't have a family unit, which was designed by God to be the foundation of the world, because a family basically is the foundation as related to perpetuating the gospel, what happens is if they don't have the gospel of Jesus Christ taught as a value, what happens with these children as they are taught the values of consumerism is that they don't learn to value anything in society, and instead of you getting an order and structure, what you get is chaos, and that's what you see happening here. And this whole policy, again, of looking to making an ID to go in McDonald's, again, is a sad direction because what's happening here is that you see a restaurant, again, that was originally designed for children, originally designed to be a place where children can feel safe, is now being made into an environment which basically feels like a war zone, because we have a place where children can't feel safe. I mean, McDonald's, when I was a kid growing up in the 80s, was the place to be, and it was the place to be because you could, again, eat some very delicious food that was fresh and made from fresh beef and fresh potatoes, and basically, again, enjoy a great meal and get some nice toys in a Happy Meal. I mean, that's what McDonald's was to a kid back in the day. That was a treat for us. I mean, that was something you look forward to after a long week of working in school or a week of, again, just being in school. I mean, I look forward to going to McDonald's with my parents. I look forward to going there and getting things like Happy Meals and the toys in the Happy Meals, or getting glasses for movies out there, like I believe The Great Muppet Caper and I believe one of the Star Wars movies. I mean, going to McDonald's used to be an event. It used to be something special, and it's sad that kids cannot enjoy the McDonald's I grew up with as a kid. It's sad that they have to be in a place where you cannot even go to McDonald's because some kids want to act a fool. And again, what's really sad is about everything is how people aren't looking at the big picture of why these kids are acting a fool. And the reason why these kids are acting a fool and going wild out here is because we're not investing in our kids. No, we're not investing in our kids to, again, teach them values, because we're so busy making money. We're not seeing we're making people who are growing up into adults who have no idea of how to function in the world. No, everyone's gotten so greedy for money that we're forgetting people. And what's really sad is we're forgetting children. And since we're forgetting children, instead of them growing up to become healthy adults, they're growing up to become these children of the corn. And as they grow up to become children of the corn, they're growing up with no sort of structure, no sort of order, no model for how to be an adult, no model on how to have values as an adult or value anything at all, because no one has valued them to pour values into them or teach them things or even just spend time with them, because every minute that we nurture a child, especially during adolescence when they need that scaffolding in order to know how life works, I mean, we basically, again, we put money over people because we think we got to have the latest things. But the greatest thing we could give kids is, again, a foundation in the gospel. That's the first thing you could do. And then the other thing is just doing little things like reading your kids bedtime stories, spending time talking to your children. I mean, talking to your children, especially about this internet and all of this misinformation you're seeing. I mean, the whole thing is that our kids are seeing this internet and seeing things like these fight videos and thinking that's normal, because we have to start looking at it from the perspective of a child. We really have to look at it from the perspective of a child. A child basically is looking at these fight videos that us adults are seeing as entertainment, and they see this as, oh, this is how I'm supposed to behave. I mean, these fights at McDonald's, these fights at Waffle House, these fights in these stores. Again, these are examples of embarrassing behavior, and we need to start denouncing this behavior, because what's happening here, I'm seeing with these children, is, again, their values are being framed by what they're seeing, and that's why you're seeing this chaos in the streets. Chaos, again, further exacerbated because prosecutors won't set boundaries that, as related to society, to hold people accountable, because with these kids getting violent, they have to know where the line is. They have to know where the line is, because in order for us to have a McDonald's where people can just go in and put in their orders and get their food and go, we need to see, again, consequences for actions, and that's where people get it real twisted. They don't see how everything works as related to things, because the old African proverb that the late David Carroll told us about how a race can rise no pitch but more higher than the moral position of a race, and as the woman goes, so it goes. The sad part is many people can't see how this started with corporate America looking to corrupt America's women, and now America's women are not doing their job of teaching kids because they're too busy working. And since they're out here working, our society isn't working, because our children are growing up with this internet being fed misinformation, and as they're being fed misinformation growing up like stalks, they make it where you cannot even enjoy a meal in a McDonald's and have great memories like I did as a kid. No, they can't enjoy burgers because the children of the corn see it as a place to have fights. And again, as they're looking to have fights, these restaurants have to have security, and have security because these children again, don't have that ability to have a childhood. That's one of the things that upsets me the most, is that these kids today, they don't have a pop culture because we took TV, we took their parents away from them. They don't have TV because we took TV away from them because they wanted TV to go digital so they can make more money. And then when the kids went to the internet, again, we messed up the internet. So these children don't have a way to have a childhood, don't have their own pop culture, don't have anything of their own. And since they don't have anything of their own, they feel like they have nothing to lose. And that's why these businesses are losing, like this McDonald's. They're losing because many of these folks just can't connect dots. They can't connect dots as related to seeing how the foundation of the family, once it's broken, breaks everything in society. And instead of us getting boys and girls who grow up to become healthy men and women who go to McDonald's and have a good time, we have men and women in crisis who cause chaos and make it where a person needs to have an ID just to go in a place that almost 40 years ago a kid could go in and basically put in an order and leave with that order, and it was just something that a part of a kid's growing up. Now, if you want to learn how we wound up on this road where you need to have an ID to go to a McDonald's restaurant, you can pick up my books, The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis, to learn how our family just completely fell apart and learn how to identify this behavior so that you can go out here and correct this behavior and keep your child from growing up to become a child of the corn and wind up growing up to become a healthy, well-adjusted adult. And you can find both The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me make more videos talking about this entire crisis of the family, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Boule in this action-packed all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side at Amazon.com and other online booksellers. Now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.